Hey yo, peace. It's your man, El Judge, man. Coming right back at you, man. What's about that real talk, real fast, man? Hey, man, let's talk about angels and evolution. Now, these things that beings call angels, man, what they originally are were uh, they were divine intelligence in energy form. Now, nevertheless, they existed within and without one another, if that makes any sense. But nevertheless, they all had different jobs that they had to do, and they exist within secret orders. You know what I'm saying? So a lot of us, man, we on this planet we talk stuff about the secret orders, but man, secret orders go far beyond the physical man. Everything has an order in its existence, even the ones we call angels. Now these beings that were known as angels or gods in some cases or whatever, some of those beings they came here to help participate in the creation of this planet right here. Now, as they did such, some of them began to devolve and they began to manifest themselves in what you would call physical form. Now, as they became physical and became more physical, the de evolution of them continued. Now, at one point, man, this was a planet that had nothing but these gods on them. Some of them were in physical form, and some of them stayed in energy form, the straight etheric form. And many of those beings right now are still here. Now, a lot of the beings that took on uh, physical form, millions of them were killed. They wiped each other out because they had wars and they began to become egotistical and they wanted to be on top of the game. So they went to war. They created divine weapons that would even kill the ones that existed in etheric form. They're scandalous. Scandalous. But nevertheless, man, the wars that they had that lasted millions of years and millions of years, and the war still continues on to this day. You don't see these angelic beings as much because, well, sometimes they're right before your face and you just don't know who they are. And sometimes they hide. Now, a lot of people, man, now, I don't know why hell, it's Sunday. Let's talk about anything. Now, a lot of people, man, they go back and they be like, yeah, man, it's those evil reptilians. They running everything behind the scenes. Mm, they are renegades. They don't like those angelic beings as well. Some of them take orders from those beings. It's another story. Do not talk about reptilians too much, and you shouldn't as well, unless you prepare yourself to be visited by one or two or three of them, or the effects, how they can affect your existence on this physical plane. So just let them be. But let's continue. During the process of them devolving into what they would call looking like humans, when this was occurring, there was another being that was evolving coming up out of the waters. Now, let's go back. Let's go back. Now, when this planet first came into existence, the evolution of this planet, after the planet began to cool down and the waters that were on the planet became filtered, the waters on this planet, this was a complete freshwater planet. So the beings that were evolving out of the water, they didn't have much of a disagreeable nature because they were coming out of an agreeable environment. This was heaven. When everything settled down and the plants began to grow, this was heaven. Don't let anybody fool you. And we had these beings who evolved out of the water and they came into this right here. Now, I can't say disclaimer. I'm just going to say this. The story of our existence on this plane right here or on this planet as well, put it that way. It is not a linear story. I mean, it's things coming from this way, things come from that way, things were happening. There were many different things happening all over the place. Because at the same time that the organic ones were evolving out of the water, there were beings who were fighting. And like I said, remember that the angelic ones, they were going to war. And those beings who devolved down to the point to where they no longer had their spiritual abilities 1000%. They gravitated more toward technology and the new form of magic, which was science. So on some parts of this planet, some beings did pay attention to those beings that were evolving out of the water, and they grabbed a couple of them and they sped up their process. Now, this is where you get the story of Aristogal and the Anunnakis when they created a being and used that being for not just a slave, but they used that being for a sex slave as well. They used it to be a servant, and they used it as a sex slave as well. So a lot of us, some of us are mixed in with the bloodlines of the Anunnakis. Now, the Anunnakis, like I said, they too were of the bloodlines of the beings who manifested in the flesh on another planet, and they devolved down into the things that they call Anunnakis. They were another human form of beings that were just more technologically advanced, and they came here to heaven right here. They came here. This planet was known as heaven. They came here and they wanted a piece of the pie. They came here for a reason. You know what I'm saying? Because they needed the gold here, and that's a whole nother story that I don't feel like talking about. But yeah, but they participated in the evolution of some of us, and some of us just naturally evolved. But nevertheless, as time went by, like I said, they were using us for sex slaves. So as time went by, the Anunnaki, they were having children with us. Let's continue. Let's go back. Now, on the other side, and other stories is that some of the beings who naturally evolved and began to look like you and I over a process of millions, if not billions, of years. Some of the beings that were direct descendants of the ones who manifested in physical form, some of the ones who were still had the ability. Put it this way: you had some that was here that would they can change into physical form and they can go back to etheric form at will, and they still stuck around, and some of them are still around today. Some of those would go and manifest in physical form, and they developed a liking towards some of these new beings on this planet, and they had children with them, demigods, basically. So a lot of us, man, we got a whole lot of different stuff mixed up in our blood. And then the story about us not evolving, that's not true. Evolution is a necessary process. Hell, you even evolve from the doggone tadpole within the mother, come up out of the egg, and you evolve to what you are today. So evolution is a natural process. So those, like the original story of the Nomos, is that the Nomos was a fish-like creature. Excuse me. is that the Nomos originally was a fish-like creature, and it had the two eyes on one side. It didn't have like most of your fish. You see, they have an eye on this side and an eye on that side. The Nomos had the fish had the two eyes in the front. Something like that, those fish that people catch every now and then that has the two eyes in the front and it has a beak like a nose and it has teeth like us. Process of natural evolution. Those things ain't never go nowhere. They're still around. Life will continue on this planet. Let's continue. Let's continue this damn story. But anyway, man, yeah, man. Some of us are mixed in with that, but some of us are part of those Nomos things who came out of the waters and evolved into this lizard-looking thing, and then as it evolved into this lizard-looking thing, it evolved into this monkey-like looking thing. It began to, as it came on this planet, it had to protect itself from the elements, so it began to grow hair on its body, and the hair really are antennas. So it was a way for them to have their senses. They can detect danger and all kinds of different stuff in their environment. There was just them evolving to this environment. And they were these little monkey like things, man. They probably were not much bigger than this in the beginning. You know what I'm saying? Some of them were very small, you know what I'm saying? Well, probably bigger than that, but they were small. And then as time went by, they began to reach up for stuff. They start getting taller, and then the tail that they had, it began to dissolve throughout time too. So yes, you had a tail at one time too. Monkey ass nigga. I know this is gonna make a lot of people upset, man, but I mean, this thing of us just calling ourselves gods and acting as if, man, we're not part of evolution is somewhat absurd. You know what I'm saying? Because nevertheless, all of us, man, we mixed in. You know, we all mixed in. We mixed in with the beings that were genetically spliced. We are part of the beings who manifested themselves in physical form. And we are part of the beings who come up out of the water. We are the new beings. Let me say that again. We are the new beings. Let me say that one more time. We are the new beings. Nubians. My Nubian queen and king. Yes, that's us. We've been, some of us was tampered with, some of us just came along organically. But nevertheless, now, like I was mentioning before, I did say that this used to be a freshwater planet. So we came up out of the fresh waters and we had more of an agreeable nature. That's just how we are. That's in our DNA, the way we are. Now, we can be a warrior being because we've been programmed to be warrior beings to protect ourselves, and the mixing of the DNA with certain other beings gave us that spirit too. Because, geez, I would have to go all the way back and tell you the stories about us being so agreeable that we would just let beings kill us. So then we mixed our blood with the disagreeable race of beings so that we would have that disagreeableness in us to fight. That's another part of our story too in this history. But I don't want to talk about that. I want to talk about this here. This used to be a freshwater planet, and most of us came out agreeable. Then something happened. Every 20 something thousand years, that doggone planet called Nibiru, which really is a ship, it comes into orbit. This time, Nibiru came too close and it hit Malduk. Malduk was a water planet, and there were beings that lived on that water planet. Now, when Malduk crashed, those beings got mad. They tried to fight, you know what I'm saying? But they couldn't prevail because they didn't have the technology like they have on Nibiru. That's just a whole nother story. You can read about that shit yourself. Sorry for cussing. But the effects of that was the water, that water planet, it came out through space. The water went throughout space and it began to freeze. And as it entered our atmosphere, it turned back into water. And it was more sodium like water. Basically, we went from having a complete freshwater planet to having spots of saltwater planets. Now, the evolution process of beings coming out of the water still continued. Now, we're talking billions of years, but the evolution process of beings coming out of the water still continued. And certain beings and creatures began to form up out of those salt waters. And these creatures were disagreeable. Get where I'm going? Because even the so-called white man, it has a story of its evolution as well. You see, a lot of us, we take the Yakub story and we think that's the creation of the white man. No, that's the creation of a light-skinned man that was melanin deficient. It's not the creation of the white man. This thing that we call the white man, the original beast of the field, it evolved out of uh, out of the salt waters. Now, like I said, all white people ain't the same. The majority of white people are of the family of man. They just, as time went by over the generations, they got weak and they devolved into what they look like today. But there's a certain type of white man, and you know what I'm talking about. The ones that they call the Karens, the ones that stormed the Capitol. You know what I'm saying? I'm not talking about the people who were actors that stormed the Capitol. I'm talking about the people who really had that in their heart. The beings who would totally be disagreeable towards you because of who and what you look like. You know what I'm saying? They just have a natural evil hate in them. You know what I'm saying? They're just salty. And anyone, if you know the effects of salt, how it lines your doggone your blood vessels, and it doesn't allow your blood vessels to put off a certain protein that would keep you more calm and keep you in an agreeable state. The salt literally makes you salty. You have these beings on this planet who are of that, and it just so happens that they are the color of salt. They came out of the salt waters. This is a it's a lot, man, to this, man. And I'm trying to enjoy myself on Sunday, man, before I gotta go back to work tomorrow. But I hope y'all got something out of this here. It's 18 minutes. I just wanted to put a little bit of stuff, a little bit down. I think over the next few videos or so, I'm gonna look back at this here, and then if you have time, leave a comment. You know what I'm saying, and break me off with some of the stories that you know. And let's continue this. Peace and blessings. I'm out.